The rain was cold that October night when my son's words cut through me like glass. "You're nothing but an old parasite, Mom. Get out." I stood there in the marble foyer of the house I'd helped him buy, my suitcase at my feet, water dripping from my coat onto the expensive tiles his wife had picked out. Behind him, Madison stood with her arms crossed, her face a mask of satisfaction. My grandson, my sweet Tommy, peeked around the corner, confusion and fear in his 6-year-old eyes. 58 years I'd lived on this earth. 34 of them I'd dedicated to raising the man who now looked at me like I was garbage on his designer shoes. Before we continue, please subscribe and hit that notification bell, and let us know where in the world you're watching from in the comments. Let me tell you how I got here. Let me tell you about the years of sacrifice, the silent suffering, and the moment I finally understood that sometimes the people you love most are the ones who hurt you worst. My name is Margaret Collins, and I used to believe that being a good mother meant giving everything, asking for nothing, and accepting whatever scraps of love came my way. I was wrong. Derek was born when I was 24, young and full of dreams that I carefully folded away the moment I held him in my arms. His father, Robert, had been a decent man back then, a construction foreman with rough hands and a gentle smile. We weren't rich, but we were happy, or so I thought. When Derek was 7, Robert sat me down at our kitchen table and told me he'd fallen in love with someone else, a woman from his bowling league. Younger, he said, as if that explained everything. He moved out that weekend, and the child support checks that were supposed to arrive monthly became quarterly, then yearly, then stopped altogether. I worked 3 jobs to keep Derek in a good school district. I cleaned houses in the morning, worked retail in the afternoon, and did bookkeeping for a small accounting firm at night. I saw other women my age going to yoga classes and book clubs, dating, living. I was too tired for any of that. But Derek was going to have everything I didn't. He was smart. So smart. He got into Stanford on a partial scholarship, and I took out loans to cover the rest. Loans that I'm still paying off today, by the way, at 58 years old. I worked doubles, triples. I sold the car and took the bus. I ate rice and beans so he could have spending money for books and activities. He called me every Sunday for the first semester, then every other week, then just holidays, then just Christmas. "I'm networking, Mom," he'd say when I asked why he couldn't come home for Thanksgiving. "Building my future." And build it. He did. Derek graduated with honors, got recruited by a tech startup in San Francisco, and within 5 years was making more money than I'd seen in my entire life. He married Madison, a blonde, polished woman with a trust fund and a master's degree in marketing, in a ceremony I had to take out a credit card to afford to attend. I was so proud of him. So incredibly proud. When Derek turned 30, they bought a house in Marin County. 6 bedrooms, an infinity pool, a view of the bay. Madison posted pictures on social media with captions like, "Blessed and hard work pays off." I was still living in the same small apartment in Sacramento, the one with the leaky faucet, and the neighbor who played heavy metal at 2 a.m. "Mom, you should move closer," Derek said during one of our increasingly rare phone calls. "We have all this space." My heart soared. My son wanted me near. "Really, Derek?" Yeah, there are some nice senior communities around here. I could help you look for a place." The hope deflated like a punctured balloon. "Oh, of course. That's thoughtful. But I couldn't afford those senior communities. Not on my Social Security and the part-time work I was still doing at the bookstore. Not with Derek's student loan still hanging around my neck like an anchor. 3 years passed. Then Madison got pregnant, and everything changed. "Mom, we need you," Derek said. And my heart, foolish thing that it is, leaped again. "Madison's having complications with the pregnancy. She's on bed rest, and I can't take that much time off work. Could you come help?" Could I? I quit my job the next day. I packed up my entire life into boxes I put in storage, surrendered my apartment lease, and drove to Marin County with everything I owned crammed into my aging Honda Civic. "It'll just be for a few months," Derek said, hugging me at the door. "Just until Tommy's born and Madison's back on her feet." Tommy arrived in April. A beautiful, healthy baby boy with Derek's eyes and Madison's button nose. I fell in love instantly. I held him when he cried at 3 a.m. I changed diapers and did midnight feedings while Madison recovered. I cooked meals, cleaned the house, did the laundry, the shopping. I was a live-in nanny, housekeeper, and cook, all unpaid, all grateful just to be useful to my son. Just a few more months. Mom, Derek would say when I gently asked about my next steps. Madison's still adjusting. Months became a year. A year became 2. I didn't mind. Not really. I got to watch my grandson grow. I got to see his first steps, hear his first words. Gamma, he called me, and it made every sacrifice worth it. But Madison was different after Tommy was born. She started making little comments about how I loaded the dishwasher wrong, how I folded the towels incorrectly, how I was confusing Tommy by letting him have a cookie before dinner. Margaret, we're trying to raise him with structure, she'd say, her voice dripping with condescension. You might not understand modern parenting, but we do things differently now. I bit my tongue, smiled, adjusted. Derek never said anything. He'd come home from work, kiss Madison, ruffle Tommy's hair, and disappear into his home office for conference calls and important work. The guest room I stayed in was nice enough, better than my old apartment, certainly. But it wasn't mine. Nothing in that house was mine except the single suitcase of clothes I'd brought. When Tommy turned 4, Madison announced they were hiring a nanny. A professional, she said, not looking at me as she scrolled through her phone at the breakfast table. Someone with credentials. My stomach dropped. You're wonderful, Margaret. Really. But Tommy needs educational structure. A Montessori approach. You understand. What I understood was that I was being replaced. The nanny, a young woman named Sophia with a degree in early childhood education, started 2 weeks later. She was kind to me, which somehow made it worse. Mrs. Collins, you don't have to do that, she'd say when she found me folding laundry or packing Tommy's lunch. That's what I'm here for. I felt myself becoming invisible in that house, a ghost haunting the halls I'd cleaned for years. Derek barely noticed. He was busy with a promotion, more travel, more late nights. Madison was busy with her yoga retreats, her charity galas, her brunch clubs, and I was just there, taking up space in the guest room, eating the organic food Madison ordered from specialty stores, trying to stay out of everyone's way. Then came Tommy's 6th birthday party. Madison had planned it for weeks, elaborate superhero theme with a bounce house, a magician, catered food, and a guest list that included every child from Tommy's private school. Can I help set up? I asked that morning. Madison was on her phone, directing the party planner. She waved me off. It's handled, Margaret. Why don't you just relax, as if I were a guest in this house. As if I hadn't spent the last 6 years cooking, cleaning, caring for their child while they built their perfect lives. But I plastered on a smile and retreated to my room. The party was loud, chaotic, filled with strangers. I stood in the corner of the backyard, watching Tommy blow out his candles, watching Derek and Madison pose for photos like the perfect family they believed themselves to be. Who's that lady? I heard one of the mothers ask Madison. Madison glanced at me. And for just a moment, I saw something flicker across her face. Embarrassment? Annoyance? Oh, that's Derek's mother, she said, her voice light. She's staying with us for a while. Not, she lives here. Not, she helped raise Tommy. Not, she's family. She's staying with us for a while, like I was temporary. Disposable. That night, after the guests left and the yard was cleaned up, I lay in my guest room bed and stared at the ceiling. 6 years I'd been here. 6 years of helping, serving, loving this family. And I was still just staying with them for a while. The next morning, I made a decision. I was sitting at the kitchen island, drinking coffee, when Derek came down in his running gear. Morning, Mom. He grabbed a bottle of water from the fridge. Derek, I need to talk to you about something. He glanced at his watch. Can it wait? I've got a 10K route planned. It can't wait. My voice was firmer than I'd meant it to be. He paused, surprised. I never pushed back. I never demanded his time. Okay. He leaned against the counter. What's up? I took a breath. I think it's time I find my own place. His eyebrows rose. Your own place? Mom, you can't afford. I know it won't be much. But I've been looking at some apartments in Sacramento. There's a senior community that's income-based. Sacramento? That's 2 hours away. I know. But I need my own space, Derek. I need to stop feeling like a guest in your home. His face hardened. A guest? Mom, we've given you everything. Free room and board for 6 years. And I've given you 6 years of free childcare, cooking, cleaning. Oh, here we go. He set down the water bottle with a sharp crack. The guilt trip. The look at everything I've sacrificed routine. My chest tightened. That's not what You know, Madison said you'd do this eventually. Said you'd start keeping score, making us feel like we owe you something. I'm not asking for anything except the space to live my own life. Your own life? You don't have a job, Mom. You don't have savings. You have nothing, because you made bad choices your whole life, and now you expect us to take care of you forever. The words hit like physical blows. Bad choices. My voice shook. I raised you alone. I worked myself to the bone. Nobody asked you to. Nobody asked you to take out those loans or work 3 jobs. You made those choices, and now you want to guilt us into paying for them forever. Madison appeared in the doorway, her silk robe wrapped tight, her expression concerned in that performative way she had. What's going on? I could hear you two from upstairs. Mom's threatening to leave, Derek said, his voice tight. Says she wants her own place. Oh, Margaret. Madison's voice dripped with false sympathy. If this is about the nanny situation, it's not about the nanny. I stood up, my hands trembling. It's about feeling like I matter, like I'm more than just help. You're being dramatic, Madison said. We've given you a home. This isn't my home. The words burst out of me. It's never been my home. I'm just convenient. Free labor that you can dress up as family when it suits you. Derek's jaw clenched. That's not fair. Fair? You want to talk about fair? Years of swallowed words came flooding out. I spent my entire adult life making sure you had opportunities I never got. I sacrificed everything. My career, my relationships, my future so you could have yours. And now I'm what? An inconvenience? An embarrassment at your son's birthday party? You were not an embarrassment, Madison started. I heard you. She's staying with us for a while. Like I'm some distant relative you're doing a favor for. Mom, calm down. Don't tell me to calm down. I was shaking now, 34 years of suppressed anger and hurt rising to the surface. I have a right to be upset. I have a right to want more than being invisible in the corner of your perfect life. Derek took a step toward me, and his expression, cold, disgusted, made me step back. You know what your problem is, Mom. You've never been happy. Not when I was a kid. Not when I was in college. Not now. You're bitter because your life didn't turn out the way you wanted, and you blame everyone else for it. That's not true. It is true. Dad left because you were miserable. I stayed away because you were always playing the victim. And now you're here, in our home, and you're still not satisfied, still not grateful. Tears burned my eyes. I just want to be seen. We see you, Mom. We see exactly what you are. He moved closer, his voice dropping to something cruel. You're a parasite. You latch onto people and drain them dry with your neediness and your guilt trips. And frankly, we're tired of it. The room went silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. Derek, Madison's voice was uncertain now, but he wasn't done. You want to leave? Fine. Leave. But don't expect us to bankroll your life anymore. Don't expect us to keep propping up your bad decisions. You're an adult, Mom. It's time you acted like one. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. I think, Madison touched Derek's arm. Maybe we should all take a minute. No. Derek shook her off. I'm done. She wants independence? She can have it. He turned to me, and the stranger wearing my son's face said words I'll never forget. Pack your things. You have until tonight. Derek, please. I said pack your things. The rest of that day was a blur of numb shock. I moved through the house like a zombie, putting my meager belongings back into the suitcase I'd arrived with 6 years ago. My hands shook as I folded my sweaters, my practical shoes, my 3 nice blouses I saved for special occasions. Tommy found me in the afternoon. "Gamma? Why are you packing?" I knelt down, hugging him tight, breathing in his little boy smell of grass and sunshine and innocence. "Gamma has to go on a trip, sweetheart. When will you come back?" I couldn't answer. I just held him until Madison appeared, her face tight. "Tommy, go play in your room." "But Gamma." "Now, Thomas." He left, looking back at me with confused eyes. My heart shattered into smaller pieces. Madison stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "For what it's worth, I think Derek was too harsh. But you have to understand, Margaret. You've been living here rent-free for 6 years. That's a lot of money. A lot of generosity. Generosity. As if love were a transaction. As if raising my grandson were something I should pay rent for." "I understand," I said quietly, because what else was there to say? By 6 p.m., my car was packed. The same Honda Civic I'd driven here 6 years ago, older now, the check engine light permanently on. Derek didn't come out to say goodbye. Madison stood at the door, her expression a mix of relief and what might have been guilt. "Take care of yourself, Margaret." I didn't respond. I just got in my car and drove away from the house I'd helped buy, from the grandson I'd helped raise, from the son I'd sacrificed everything for. It was raining by the time I hit the highway. I had nowhere to go. My apartment in Sacramento was long gone. My storage unit had been sold off years ago when I couldn't keep up with payments. I had $847 in my checking account and a maxed-out credit card. I was 58 years old, alone, and homeless. I pulled into a rest stop off Highway 80 and sat in my car while rain hammered the roof. I should have been crying, should have been falling apart, but instead, I felt something else rising in my chest. Clarity. I pulled out my phone and started making calls. The first call was to my old friend Janet, who I'd lost touch with during my years in Marin County. "Maggie? Oh my God, where have you been?" Janet had been my co-worker at the bookstore, a sharp-tongued woman 10 years my senior who'd always told me I was too soft, too giving. "I need a place to stay," I said, "just for a few days while I figure things out." "Done. Get your ass to Roseville. I've got a spare room." The second call was to a lawyer I'd found through a quick Google search. "Free consultation for family law. Miss Collins, I'd need to see documentation, but if you can prove you provided regular childcare for 6 years in exchange for room and board, you may have grounds for a grandparents' rights case. You might also be able to make a claim for unpaid labor." The third call was to Derek's student loan servicer. "Yes, I need to know about removing myself as a co-signer on loans taken out in 2003. The fourth call was to my brother, James, who I hadn't spoken to in 5 years because Derek had always made excuses why we couldn't visit for holidays. "Maggie, is everything okay?" "No," I said, "but it will be. Can we talk?" And the fifth call was to myself, a promise I made sitting in that rest stop while rain turned the world gray and blurry. I was done being invisible, done being grateful for crumbs, done sacrificing myself on the altar of unconditional love. My son wanted to call me a parasite? Fine. I'd show him what it meant when the parasite stops feeding the host. Janet's house in Roseville was small but warm. She set me up in her craft room, moved her sewing machine to make space for an air mattress. "Tell me everything," she said, pouring us both generous glasses of red wine. I did. All of it. The years of sacrifice, the slow erasure of myself, Derek's cruel words, Madison's condescension. Janet's face grew redder with each detail. "That ungrateful little shit," she spat. "After everything you did for him. He's angry. He thinks I'm manipulative. Stop." Janet held up her hand. "Stop defending him. Stop making excuses. He threw you out, Maggie. He called you a parasite and threw you out with nowhere to go." Hearing it said out loud made it real in a way it hadn't been. "What am I going to do?" The question came out as a whisper. "We're going to make a plan." Janet pulled out a legal pad. "First, logistics. You need income, housing, and health insurance. Then we handle the emotional stuff. And then," her eyes glinted, Then we make them understand exactly what they lost. Over the next 2 weeks, we worked the plan. Janet got me a part-time job at the bookstore where she was now assistant manager. It wasn't much, 20 hours a week at $15 an hour, but it was something. I applied for subsidized senior housing and got on a waiting list. 6 to 8 months, they said. Janet assured me I could stay with her as long as needed. The lawyer, a sharp woman named Rosa Mendez, reviewed the documentation. I'd kept photos of me with Tommy, text messages from Derek asking me to watch his son, even a birthday card where Madison had written, "Thanks for being such a huge help with Tommy. You have a case," Rosa said. Grandparent visitation rights vary by state, but California tends to favor maintaining family relationships, especially when there's been significant custodial involvement. And regarding compensation for childcare services, that's trickier, but not impossible. "I don't want money," I said. "I just want to see my grandson." "They don't know that," Rosa said with a small smile. "And fear of financial consequences is often very motivating." My brother James drove down from Oregon. We sat in Janet's backyard, and he held my hand while I cried for the first time since leaving Marin County. "I failed him," I sobbed. "I raised him wrong somehow." "You loved him," James said firmly. "You loved him so much you lost yourself. That's not failure, Maggie. That's being human. But it's also not sustainable. You can't set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. He's my son, and you're his mother, which should mean something, which should count for something." James's voice was hard. What he did was cruel, and cruelty should have consequences. I wiped my eyes. "What kind of consequences?" "The kind that come from truth," James said. "From standing up for yourself. From showing him that you're not a doormat anymore." That night, I composed an email to Derek. I wrote and deleted it 17 times before settling on this. "Derek, I hope this finds you well." I wanted to reach out now that some time has passed and emotions have hopefully settled. I've retained legal counsel regarding grandparent visitation rights for Tommy. My lawyer believes I have a strong case given my 6 years of primary childcare. I'm also exploring options for compensation for those childcare services, as California law has provisions for such claims. I don't want a legal battle. I want to be part of my grandson's life. But I will do what I need to do to ensure that happens. I also wanted to inform you that I've contacted the student loan servicer about the co-signed loans. I'm looking into my options there as well. I hope we can resolve this like adults and avoid unnecessary legal expenses and family trauma. Mom, I stared at the email for an hour before hitting send at midnight. The response came at 7:03 a.m. "What the hell is this? Are you threatening to sue us? Are you seriously trying to blackmail your own family? You're insane. Stay away from us. If you try to contact Tommy, we'll file for a restraining order. Delete this number." I showed it to Rosa that afternoon. She smiled. "Perfect. Forward this to me." His hostile, threatening response actually strengthens your case for grandparents' rights. Courts don't look kindly on parents who weaponize children and make threats. He said he'd get a restraining order. Empty threat. He'd have to prove you're a danger to the child, and he can't do that with 6 years of you being the primary caregiver. He's scared and lashing out. "Good," I said, and meant it. The legal filing went through 2 weeks later. Madison called me 3 days after Derek was served with the grandparents' rights petition. I was shelving books at the store when my phone buzzed. I let it go to voicemail, but she called again and again. On the 4th call, I answered. "Margaret." Her voice was tight, controlled. "We need to talk. I have nothing to say to you. Please, don't do this. Don't bring lawyers into this. We're family." "Family?" I kept my voice level. Family doesn't throw each other out. Family doesn't call each other parasites. Derek was angry. He said things he didn't mean. He meant every word. And you stood there and let him say them. "I know, you're right. We handled things badly. Can we meet? Talk this out without lawyers?" "No. Margaret, please. Think about Tommy. This will confuse him, hurt him. What hurt him was watching you throw his grandmother out like trash. What hurt him was 6 years of you treating me like hired help instead of family. Her voice cracked. We're sorry. We are. We'll do better. Just drop the lawsuit. Why should I? Because, she took a shaky breath, because Derek's company is about to go public. An IPO. If there's a family lawsuit on record, it could affect his stock options. The investors, and there it was. Not regret over losing me. Not guilt over how they'd treated me. Fear over money. How much is he set to make? I asked quietly. Silence. Madison, how much? Projected? If the IPO goes well? Around $47 million. The number hit me like a truck. $47 million. And I was living on an air mattress, working part-time at a bookstore with $847 in my checking account. Drop the lawsuit, Madison said again. Please. We'll work something out. Visitation. We'll set up regular times you can see Tommy. Put it in writing. What? Have your lawyer draw up an agreement. Guaranteed visitation. 1 weekend a month. Major holidays rotating. Put it in writing. Make it legally binding. And I'll consider dropping the petition. Okay. Yes. We can do that. And Madison? One more thing. Anything. I want a formal apology. From both of you. In person. And I want Derek to admit what he said was wrong. Silence stretched between us. I'll talk to him. She hung up. I sat in the bookstore's back room, hands shaking. Janet found me there 20 minutes later. You okay? They're going to be worth $47 million, I said numbly. Motherfucker. Janet sat down hard. And they threw you out over wanting your own apartment? It was never about the apartment. It was about control. About me knowing my place. So what are you going to do? I thought about my son. The little boy I'd rocked to sleep and nursed through fevers and cheered for at every school play. I thought about the man he'd become successful, wealthy, cruel. I thought about Tommy, my grandson, who deserved to know his grandmother wasn't what his parents had told him. I'm going to teach them a lesson, I said, about consequences, about respect, about what it costs when you treat people like they're disposable. Rosa wasn't happy when I told her about Madison's call. You should have recorded that conversation, and you shouldn't negotiate directly. That's what you have me for. I know, but I needed to hear her panic. I needed to know they're scared. Rosa leaned back in her chair. What do you want, Margaret? Really want? I want them to understand what they did was wrong. I want my grandson to know I didn't abandon him. And I paused, surprised by the truth that came next. I want them to need me the way I needed them. Just once. Rosa's expression softened. That's very human of you, but also very dangerous. Revenge has a way of eating people alive. This isn't revenge, I said. It's justice. The formal agreement came a week later. 1 weekend per month, alternating major holidays, video calls twice weekly. Derek and Madison would not speak negatively about me in front of Tommy. I would not speak negatively about them. It was cold, transactional, nothing like a real family relationship. But it was something. Sign it, Rosa advised. You can always refile later if they violate the terms. And you still have the childcare compensation claim as leverage. I signed. Derek and Madison invited me to lunch at a neutral location, a restaurant in Walnut Creek, halfway between Roseville and Marin County. I dressed carefully. The nicest blouse I owned, slacks Janet had helped me pick out, my hair properly done for the first time in weeks. I wanted them to see I wasn't broken, wasn't begging. They were already seated when I arrived. Derek in a suit despite it being Saturday. Madison in designer casual, her makeup perfect. I slid into the booth across from them. Margaret, Derek said stiffly, thank you for meeting us. You wanted to apologize. He flinched at my directness. Madison jumped in. We're sorry. We both are. Things got out of hand and we said things that were hurtful and untrue. I looked at Derek. Is that your apology too? Or does your wife speak for you now? His jaw tightened. I'm sorry I called you a parasite. It was cruel. And I'm sorry I asked you to leave without giving you anywhere to go. You didn't ask, Derek. You threw me out. He looked down at his menu. You're right. I threw you out. And I shouldn't have. Why did you? What? Why did you throw me out? I want to understand. I want to know what I did that was so terrible you felt justified in treating me that way. Madison and Derek exchanged glances. Mom, you were making things difficult, Derek started. How? By asking for my own space? By wanting to feel like more than unpaid help? You were guilting us. I was asking to be seen. There's a difference. The waiter appeared, and we ordered intense silence. After he left, I continued. I gave you 6 years. I quit my job, gave up my apartment, my independence, all to help you. Not because you asked, exactly, but because you needed me, and I wanted to be needed by you. We were grateful, Madison said. Gratitude would have been treating me like family. Instead, you treated me like staff, and the moment I questioned that arrangement, you discarded me. Derek's face was flushed. That's not fair. We gave you a home. You gave me a guest room in exchange for full-time childcare, cooking, and cleaning. At minimum wage, I'd have earned over $150,000 in those 6 years, but I didn't do it for money. I did it because I loved you, both of you, and Tommy. Then why sue us? Derek's voice rose. Why bring lawyers into this? Because it was the only way you'd listen, the only way you'd take me seriously. I leaned forward. Do you know what it's like to be invisible in your own family, Derek? To watch your grandson open presents at a birthday party while his mother tells the other parents that you're just staying for a while? To feel like an embarrassment? Madison paled. I didn't mean, yes, you did. And that's fine. You're allowed to feel however you feel about me, but you're not allowed to deny me access to my grandson because of it. The food arrived. We picked at it in silence. Finally, Derek spoke. The agreement we signed, will that be enough? Will you drop the other claim? The childcare compensation? There it was. The real reason for this lunch. I set down my fork. I haven't decided yet. Mom, please. The IPO is already complicated enough. If there's a public legal battle with family, you should have thought about that before you called me a parasite. I said I was sorry. Sorry doesn't pay my bills, Derek. Sorry doesn't give me back 6 years of Social Security contributions I could have been making. Sorry doesn't rebuild the career and life I sacrificed for you. So this is about money now? His voice was bitter. I knew it. I knew you'd eventually. It's about respect. I stood up, pulling my purse onto my shoulder, and until you understand the difference, we have nothing more to discuss. Wait. Madison reached for me. I'll see you next weekend for my first scheduled visit with Tommy. Don't be late. I walked out of the restaurant with my head high, leaving them sitting there in stunned silence. The first visitation weekend arrived. Derek and Madison dropped Tommy off at Janet's house. They'd refused to give me their address for pickups, and I didn't push it. Not yet. Tommy ran to me, and I scooped him up, breathing him in. Gamma, I missed you. I missed you too, sweetheart. Derek's face was unreadable. Madison wouldn't meet my eyes. We'll pick him up Sunday at 5 p.m., Derek said. Don't be late. They left. I spent the weekend showing Tommy my new life. We went to the bookstore where I worked, and he helped me shelve books in the children's section. We went to the park and fed ducks. We made cookies in Janet's kitchen and watched cartoons. He asked me once, on Saturday night, why don't you live with us anymore, Gamma? I'd prepared for this question with Rosa's help. Sometimes grown-ups need their own space, sweetheart. But that doesn't mean I love you any less. I'll always be your Gamma. Okay. He seemed satisfied with that, and we went back to our movie. When Derek came to pick him up Sunday evening, Tommy hugged me tight. Can I come back next month? Absolutely. As they drove away, Tommy waving from the back window, I felt something shift inside me. This small victory of maintained connection mattered more than any revenge plot. But I wasn't done yet. The call came from Rosa 3 weeks later. Margaret, we have a problem. And also, an opportunity. What kind of problem? Derek's company filed their IPO paperwork. It's public record now, and there's a disclosure section about potential legal liabilities. My stomach dropped. Did they mention? They mentioned a potential family law claim. Yes. Didn't name you specifically, but anyone digging could connect the dots. It's going to come out. Shit. That's the problem. The opportunity is that Derek's lawyers called me this morning. They want to settle. Settle what? We already have the visitation agreement. They want to settle everything. A lump sum payment in exchange for you signing an NDA and releasing all claims past, present, and future. My heart started pounding. How much? They offered $250,000. The number stunned me into silence. Margaret? That's more than I've made in the last 10 years combined. It's also much less than you're entitled to if we pursue the childcare compensation claim properly. I'd estimate your actual damages at closer to $400,000 plus emotional distress, but that would require a trial. Time. Money I don't have to spend on legal fees. I work on contingency, remember? I only get paid if you do. But yes, it would take time. And it would be ugly. Derek would have to testify. Madison too. Tommy might have to be interviewed by a court-appointed evaluator. I closed my eyes, saw Tommy's face, his confusion, his innocent love for all of us. What do you think I should do? I think you should ask for $500,000 and settle at $400,000. I think you should make them pay for what they did in the way that hurts them most, their wallet and their pride. And then, I think you should take that money and build a life that doesn't need them. But the NDA means you can't talk publicly about the settlement or the circumstances. But it doesn't mean you can't have a relationship with Tommy. That agreement stands separately. I thought about it for 3 days. I thought about Derek calling me a parasite, about Madison's condescension, about 6 years of invisible labor and sacrificed dreams. I thought about Tommy and the life I could build with $400,000, a modest house, retirement savings, security, freedom. Counter with $500,000, I told Rosa, and make sure the visitation agreement is ironclad even if I sign the NDA. Done. Derek's lawyer called Rosa back within an hour of receiving the counter offer. They'll go to $350,000, $450,000, $375,000, and that's final. Rosa looked at me. I nodded. $400,000, and you can stop pretending you won't pay it. We both know this IPO is going to make your client obscenely wealthy. $400,000 is a rounding error to him, but it's life-changing for my client, who raised him alone and then raised his son for free for 6 years. Silence on the other end. Then, $400,000. But we need this signed before the IPO goes live in 2 weeks. You'll have it. Rosa hung up and turned to me. How does it feel to be $400,000 richer? I burst into tears. They weren't happy tears or sad tears. They were release tears, relief tears, justice tears. I did it, I whispered. I stood up for myself. You did. Janet, who'd been sitting quietly in the corner, came over and hugged me. You really did. The money hit my account 1 week later. $400,000. After Rosa's contingency fee and taxes, I'd net about $260,000. It was more money than I'd ever seen in my life. I bought a small condo in Roseville. 2 bedrooms, a patio with a garden box, updated kitchen. It was mine. Entirely mine. I put $100,000 in retirement accounts. I paid off the last of Derek's student loans, not for him, but for me, to finally be free of that burden. I bought a reliable car. Not fancy, but new, with working air conditioning and no check engine light. And I took $30,000 and did something I'd never done in my entire life. I traveled. I went to Italy, to Greece, to Morocco. I saw the Colosseum and the Parthenon and ate tagine in Marrakesh. I stayed in hostels and mid-range hotels, talked to other travelers, made friends, laughed. I sent Tommy postcards from every city. I was 58 years old, and for the first time in my life, I was living for myself. The monthly visits with Tommy continued. Derek and Madison were cold but civil. We didn't speak beyond the necessary logistics. They never asked about my condo or my travels or my new life. They didn't want to know. And I realized I didn't need them to. Tommy was enough. Watching him grow, being part of his life in the limited but consistent way our agreement allowed, that was enough. 6 months after the settlement, Derek's IPO went live. The company's stock soared. News articles estimated Derek's net worth at somewhere around $62 million. Janet forwarded me one of the articles with a message. Look at your parasite son now. I looked at the photo of Derek and Madison at the IPO celebration. Champagne glasses raised, Madison's new diamond earrings catching the light. I felt nothing. No bitterness, no jealousy, no regret. They had their wealth. I had my freedom. I was watering my garden one Sunday afternoon when my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Margaret? It's Madison. I almost hung up, but something in her voice stopped me. What do you want? Her voice cracked. I need advice. Mother to mother. That got my attention. About what? About Tommy. He's been having behavioral issues at school. Acting out. His teacher thinks he's struggling with something emotional, and I don't know how to help him. Have you talked to him? He won't open up to us. He just shuts down. But his teacher said he mentioned you. Said he wished he could see his gamma more. My heart squeezed. He sees me once a month. That's what we agreed to. I know. But maybe that's not enough. Maybe he needs more stability with you. I sat down on my patio chair, stunned. Are you asking me to take him more often? I'm asking if you'd be willing to. Not to live with us, she added quickly. We couldn't do that again. But maybe every other weekend instead of once a month? And summer visits? A week or two? This was the woman who'd stood by while her husband called me a parasite, who'd treated me like inconvenient furniture for 6 years. Why should I help you? Silence. Then, quietly. Because you're his grandmother, and despite everything you love him. I know you do. She was right. Damn her, she was right. I'll think about it. Thank you. That's all I can ask. She hung up. I sat in my garden, surrounded by the tomato plants and herbs I'd lovingly tended, in the home I'd bought with money I'd fought for, living a life I'd built from scratch after losing everything. And I realized something profound. I'd won. Not because I'd gotten money from Derek. Not because I'd legally forced him to give me access to Tommy. I'd won because I'd reclaimed myself. The woman who'd been invisible, who'd accepted crumbs, who'd believed her only value was in what she could give others, that woman was gone. In her place was someone stronger. Someone who knew her worth. Someone who wouldn't settle for being treated as disposable. I called Madison back. I'll do every other weekend and 2 weeks in summer. But I want it in writing, added to our custody agreement. And I want Tommy to have a room at my place, his own space here where he feels safe and wanted. Done. Whatever you need. And Madison? One more thing. Yes, I forgive you. And Derek. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve to be free of the anger. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. You taught me a valuable lesson about protecting myself. I won't make the mistake of being vulnerable with you again. I could hear her crying softly. I understand. And Margaret? For what it's worth, I'm sorry. I'm really, truly sorry. I believe you. And strangely, I did. 2 years later. I'm 60 years old now. My hair has more gray, but I don't bother coloring it anymore. I like how it looks earned, honest, real. Tommy comes every other weekend and for 3 weeks each summer. His room here has posters of his favorite superheroes and a shelf of books we read together. He calls me Gamma, and when he hugs me, he does it with his whole heart. Derek and Madison and I have reached a détente. We're not close, we'll never be close again, but we're civil. We coexist for Tommy's sake. Derek's company has made him even wealthier. They bought a bigger house, a vacation home in Tahoe. I don't care. I have my little condo with its garden. I have my job at the bookstore, where I'm now the children's section manager. I have Janet and my brother James and the life I built from the ashes of the one they burned down. I travel once a year. Morocco became Turkey, became Iceland, became Japan. I've learned to paint. I volunteer at the library. I date sometimes. Nothing serious, but I've learned that companionship doesn't require sacrifice, that I can be loved without losing myself. Tommy asked me recently, Gamma, are you happy? We were making cookies, chocolate chip, his favorite. Yes, sweetheart, I am. Even though you don't live with us? Especially because I don't live with you. At his confused look, I added, I love you so much, Tommy. But I also love myself now, and sometimes we have to love ourselves enough to choose our own happiness. Is that why Daddy paid you a lot of money? Because you chose yourself? I stopped stirring the batter. How do you know about that? I heard him talking to Mom. He said he had to pay you to make the lawsuit go away. He sounded mad about it. I knelt down to Tommy's eye level. Your daddy and I had a disagreement about how I should be treated. And sometimes when grown-ups can't agree, they need lawyers and courts to help them figure things out. But that doesn't mean I don't love you, or that this is your fault. Adult problems are adult problems. You just get to be a kid, okay? Okay. He hugged me. I'm glad you didn't go away forever, Gamma. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. Derek called me last month. Mom? It's Derek. I was surprised. We only communicated through text for pickups and drop-offs. Is everything okay? Is Tommy? Tommy's fine. I wanted to talk to you. I sat down, wary. About what? About what happened 2 years ago. Derek, we've moved past that. No, we haven't. Not really. And I need to say this. He took a breath. I was wrong. Not just about calling you a parasite, though that was unforgivable. I was wrong about everything. About how we treated you, about taking you for granted, about acting like your sacrifices didn't matter. I didn't speak. Waiting. I've been in therapy, he continued. Madison insisted after Tommy started having problems. And my therapist asked me to talk about my childhood, about you raising me alone, about the divorce. And I realized I blamed you for Dad leaving, for not being enough to make him stay. And I punished you for it. My whole life. My eyes filled with tears. I made myself successful to prove I didn't need you, that I was better than the life you gave me. But the truth is, you gave me everything, and I threw it back in your face. I threw you away like you were nothing. Derek, I don't expect forgiveness, Mom. I don't deserve it, but I needed you to know that I understand now. I understand what I did, and I'm sorry. I'm so fucking sorry. He was crying. My son was crying, and for the first time in years, I heard the little boy he used to be the one who needed me, who loved me without condition. I forgive you, I said. I already did, actually. But hearing you say this, understanding what you did, that means everything. Can we? His voice was small. Can we try to have a real relationship again? Not just drop-offs and legal agreements? I thought about it. About trust broken and slowly rebuilt, about second chances and the long road of healing. We can try, I said. But Derek, I'm not the same person you threw out 2 years ago. I won't accept being treated as lesser. I won't sacrifice myself for your convenience. I won't be invisible. I don't want you to be. I want my mom, the real you, not the version who bent herself into knots trying to please everyone else. Then we can try. We started having monthly dinners, just Derek and me at first, then including Madison, then Tommy. They're not easy, these dinners. There's still tension, still unspoken hurt, but there's also effort. Derek asks about my life. Madison listens. Tommy beams to have all of us together. We're not healed, not fully. Maybe we never will be, but we're trying. I'm writing this from my patio, watching the sunset turn my garden golden. I think about the woman I was 3 years ago, invisible, desperate for scraps of love and validation, willing to erase herself for others. She's gone. In her place is someone who knows her value, who demands respect, who won't accept less than she deserves. My son called me a parasite and threw me out. What I did next didn't just leave them begging, it left me whole. I fought back. I stood up for myself. I refused to be erased. I took what I was owed and built a life worth living. And in the end, that's the greatest revenge of all. Not making them suffer, making them see, making them understand that I was never the problem. Their treatment of me was, and making them live with that knowledge every single day. Tommy will come this weekend. We'll bake cookies and read books and plant new flowers in the garden. Derek will pick him up Sunday evening. And maybe we'll have coffee while Tommy gathers his things. Madison will ask about my latest trip. I'm planning Vietnam for next spring. And I'll smile, knowing that the power dynamic has shifted forever. They need me now more than I need them. They need me to forgive them so they can forgive themselves. They need me to be present in Tommy's life so he stays emotionally healthy. They need me to show grace so they don't have to face their guilt. And I give these things freely now, not from desperation, but from abundance. Because I have enough. Enough money to be secure. Enough self-respect to demand better. Enough love for myself to not depend on theirs. I am 60 years old. I am free. I am whole. And I am no one's parasite. Not anymore. Not ever again. Every mother who sacrifices deserves to be honored, not erased. Every person who gives deserves to be seen, not thrown away. And every human being has the right to stand up and say, I matter. I have value. And I will not accept less than I deserve. This is the story of one woman who found her voice after a lifetime of silence. May we all have the courage to do the same. Thank you for listening to my story, and thank you for being here.